Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Yes, Dave.
I prefer frame rates intro. I'm just throwing that out there.
Why?
I'm not trying to jerk you off. It's gentler. It's like coming out of a nice nap.
Oh yeah, it's a nap.
Yeah. Where our intro is a little more abrasive, not that much more. We're just like more like
you're more amped to be here.
We're more amped. Yeah, it's hot. Hey everybody.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we over at Small Beans are we're just like the cool we're like the cool kids near the tree who have a kick it spot and don't talk to anyone else. But if you went over and talked to us, we'd be probably fine. But we're a little bit more sensitive.
Yeah. Anywho, my name is David Bell.
I'm Abe Epperson.
And we just watched M3GAN.
M3GAN!
Woo! She's a fucking robot.
I have this project at work. Do you want to see?
Yes.
Ever since I was little, I dreamed of this perfect toy that would protect a kid from ever feeling lonely or sad. This is Megan.
Hi, Megan. I'm Katie. It's nice to meet you, Katie. Do you want to hang out? Okay.
She's a fucking robot. It's Ex Machina up in here.
It is kinda, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Well, it could have been.
Yeah. This came out early this month, and for this was one where I was I knew we were gonna cover it, but I wasn't in a rush to cover it. And then Abe, thank you so much for jumping in here, being our Tom.
I had to talk about M3GAN. I just had to.
Yeah, you came to me, you're like, oh my God, I gotta talk about M3GAN.
I gotta talk about this. AI films.
It's getting really good reviews. It's in it was a 98% in the first week it came out.
That's
from critics.
Wild.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But first of all, Abe, thank you for being on here, and I just want to start with any plugs that you want to do before we get into it.
So yeah, Small Beans is this thing that we do. It's like the sister network of this Gamefully Unemployed that you're on, and it's where Michael Swaim and myself talk about movies and all the same kind of stuff that they talk about here. It's just two different people, but there's an intense amount of crossover. Like this episode, we have things like Star Trek: The Next Futurama. We got Spiel Boys. An upcoming unnamed mini-series that people can get excited about, featuring Dave and myself.
Yes.
So if you like more of this, go over and enjoy more of that. Again, that's patreon.com/smallbeans.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun. I am looking forward to that. That's coming out, I think, February, folks.
Yes, February.
And that's all we'll say about it for now. We're great sisters, Abe.
We're
great sisters.
We're delicious sisters.
Yep. So, Megan, it seemed like a meme to me in the trailers.
Yes.
It's a horror film about a little girl who lost her parents and has to live with her aunt, and her aunt is working for a high-tech toy company, and she is working on a robot that is going to be the ultimate toy. She basically uses the prototype Megan with her niece, and her niece slowly starts using it almost as a crutch. It becomes more of a parent than the aunt is.
That's right.
And then, of course, as you see in the trailers, Megan whose programming is all kind of fucked up because she wasn't given proper programming is the implication, starts murdering people because she identifies any harm against the girl, including psychological harm, and then she slowly just becomes self-aware. We'll get into the pieces. Abe, what did you think of M3GAN?
So it starts with kind of this ad for a
Like a Furby.
The Furby. They calls it Furzies. And it's an intro, and it's very, very reminiscent of Mandy's Cheddar Goblin.
Yes, it has those. It's not. It doesn't do it. It doesn't go.
All the way, which is. We can talk about that. I watched the first scene, and I'm like, there's something here. It's super self-aware that it's ridiculous, and it's seemingly that the movie's going to be irrational and really try for things. That was the moment where I was like, I had the most hope for this movie, because I thought that would be the movie that I would get. I was going to get a completely unhinged movie that went wildly out of format, did crazy things, and had like really fun sequences that they just thought would be fun to do.
I think we're going to be in sync, because my next question is, Abe, did the movie deliver on that?
I don't think this movie succeeded personally. I think this movie walked right up to the precipice of being like, I can jump off and this can be like a fun little thing, and they went directly to the expected. It's just like Annabelle or Orphan, or it's a movie about a little girl demon.
Yeah. So I want to start by saying that I did have fun watching this movie. I don't think this movie is bad. I sat in the theater and I enjoyed myself. I had a good time.
Right.
The audience enjoyed themselves. It was fun. But I am going to say
it's flawed.
Not all movies have this problem, but this does, where to sum it up, this doesn't. It sets up a lot of promises, and it doesn't deliver, and it doesn't go all the way. It's what you're saying. I would sum it up in one word. That word being PG-13. I don't think about all movies this way, but I think to me that kind of sums up the problem. Is that the movie, I think, holds back.
Yeah,
not just in the
right.
gore, but in its plot in general.
I do get the feeling that there was a mediocre script somewhere, and then it got an awesome pass by someone awesome, but then they were told you can't go completely awesome, because they end scenes with like really like the second or third, the first scene with M3GAN, her head blows up, and so it's like, all right, now I know we're going this fuck everything, let's have fun. And it is fun. It does flirt with the fun, but ultimately it's flawed because it needs to be in its DNA this kind of paint by numbers horror movie. And it really, really, by the time that you get around an hour, you go, oh shit, it's been an hour, and all the fun shit I thought that was going to happen hasn't really happened, and now we're in our climax, and what is this? Like, why is this happening? You know?
And I do think... Yeah, I think some people are going to be like, what are you talking about? She did a dance. She ripped a kid's ear off. And it's like, yeah, but can you think about what this could have been?
Right.
Like, that's the thing, is that this could... There's a very... And I get the feeling that something happened. Because I want to describe a scene that, for me, made me go, what the fuck is happening here?
Right.
She has she has a boss, right?
Yes.
And her boss is an asshole. He's an asshole.
He's an idiot.
Yeah, and he has this hubris, and the whole idea is they're rolling out this toy, and for a while she cares more about kind of the aunt is supposed to sort of care more about the toy than her niece, which I think they kind of they go back and forth. Like, she does the thing where she has collectibles, and she's like, you can't play with those, and then later, like, the therapist just says, oh, they're just toys, and she gets insulted. And I thought they were going to do more with that, and they don't really. And what I notice is that this movie plants a lot of seeds that then don't really grow. And the big one for me was, so they're going to do this big, at the end, a presentation of M3GAN. And it's after the aunt, the main character, she realizes Megan's murdering people, and she wraps Megan up, and she brings them in, and she's like, there's something wrong with Megan. And this boss, I thought they were going to do a thing where at this point it's gotten away from her, like the hype, and her boss is the hubris. And I thought the boss was going to say, you're worrying about it too much. I'm going to grab Megan, and I'm going to present her to everybody
anyway. Yeah, and then it goes terribly wrong in publicly.
Yep. And they set up a scene where he says, why is this place empty? It's a big presentation. Get more people in here. Get kids.
Yeah, it's like they're building the stakes for it.
Yep, they're building a bloodbath is what I thought they were doing. I was like, oh, so fuck, yes.
I was
this
like, all right, fine. All right, they got one less. Nope, they don't.
No, it doesn't. I thought from the trailer, that scene in the office where she's dancing, I was like, oh, she's going to wipe out so many people in that scene. She kills 2 people and kind of randomly. Like, she does kill the boss and then his assistant, who they set up to be bad. And they do that thing where, like, kind of everybody she kills, it has to be a little bad.
Right.
And it's like, come on, just, I don't know. She can kill innocent people, too. And so, like, it just sort of deflates, where it's like, she gets away. She doesn't kill the 2 assistants because they're good people. She, like, which is weird that she doesn't, too. Because you'd think she'd have a big grudge against them, like she'd want to kill them. She hunts down the boss for no reason, and at this point, all she wants to do is get to the little girl. So I thought she was just going to mow through everybody, getting to her best friend, her daughter. She kind of considers her. She says, like, I'm the parent at one point. So, like, it was really weird that they set that up. And then they absolutely don't go through with it. And that bums me the fuck out.
It bums me the fuck out because this could have been... Like, and also, going back to what you were saying about, like, there are some excellent aspects about this. Like, they did go places with it, like the dance and the meme and all that.
Yeah.
But, again, what... Ex Machina had done all of that shit already. Like, it's like, to me, it's not one of its failures, or why I don't think it succeeded, which, by the way, it did succeed. It's already is getting a sequel. And it's done, it's considered like a Rotten Tomatoes darling. I
have a theory on that.
Yeah, we can talk about that. But I just wanted to talk about how I think it failed mostly in its inability to try to do anything new. The things that I was trying to do kind of fizzle out, like you said. And the flaws of the film, to me, are they kind of dip their toes into something like reliance on metaphor, which is something that happens. Like, for example... they're trying to make their movie feel smarter than it is. It wants us to connect to the grief and the fear and the concept of outsourcing it, right?
Yes,
and
but it doesn't follow through.
It doesn't follow through. Like, you gave a great example of the, like, kind of the scene when the girl first arrives, Katie first arrives, and Gemma's the name of the aunt. She puts a glass on the table, and it's much like the beat with the collectibles, and Gemma puts a coaster under it, and then she looks at the coaster. The kid is kind of saddened by this, like, oh shit, I guess I have to, like, it dawns on Katie, I guess I have to deal with, like, a coaster house now. Right. But then we get a moment with Gemma where, and this is completely unspoken, it's a great kind of scene if this is what you're going to go for, right? Gemma has this expression where her face like falls a bit, and you notice that, oh, she just realized that this is going to be messy, and she's going to have to, like, give up some of her things that she really wants, like coasters on everything.
Yeah, they do a lot.
They set it up.
When the little girl first shows up, they're doing stuff where, like, her bedroom is clearly like her ex-office / exercise room, and, like, she's not prepared, as you would, like, you know. Of course she's not prepared. Her sister suddenly died and left her a kid, and she's not equipped for it, and she's also not good at it. But she wants to also take care of this kid because she knows it's the right thing to do. Yeah. So that's a good setup, right?
That's a good setup, and they do a lot to kind of make, like, M3GAN essentially like a parallel to both Katie and to as a young girl and to Gemma as a like learning mother. Let's look at some of the metaphors that they actually start, and it's like, oh yeah, if you noticed it, this is actually probably something, but they're never used.
Going back even more, the car accident scene, which is one of those scenes where it's like, you don't need this scene, right? You don't actually need to show the car accident.
You don't really.
So the question is, why do it? And so they're doing it to set up the Furby toy, but then they're showing her in the car playing with the Furby toy, and the parents are actually arguing over using the toy and screen time.
Yeah.
And like that idea of like, there's a theme of like, you don't want your kids raised by YouTube. You can give this is a running thing that parents do, and I would argue this is obviously up for debate, but basically the idea of shoving an iPad in a kid's hand to keep them occupied. You see it all the time. Parents with kids with their iPads. I would argue that we used to do this with television. It's not anything new, but obviously there's a question of moderation in terms of parenting. And again, you don't want your kid completely raised by the internet because the internet's a sociopath, which is kind of what M3GAN symbolizes, right? Is like, she's the unfeeling, like, parent. She's a sociopath.
Yes and no. I mean, they try to go for something different, which I respect. But
that's what they're setting up with, like the Furby in the car and the parents fighting over screen time. And then later, when she's starting to raise this niece, she has the same issues where she's like, "Shut off, M3GAN, not at the table." And they're trying to show that comparison, but then they don't go anywhere with it.
I think that's the problem. That's what we're running into every time, is that they just don't do anything. They even have the scenes there that they could, but they don't like stick the landing. For example, they involve a therapist at a certain point. Well, of course, because Katie's gone through a horrible trauma of her parents dying.
Right. Why didn't that therapist get murdered?
There's a scene where the therapist goes like, "Do you know anything about attachment theory speech? You know, or the attachment theory?" And then like talks about how she's basically attaching to the first new thing in her life, which happens to be M3GAN, because she's lost all frame of reference of like what life felt like. And that's a great metaphor, like in terms of grief, for what M3GAN's algorithmic learning is. Like the whole concept of an AI being thrust into this world is being thrust into any world is pretty traumatic. And M3GAN is like going, "Oh, I'm like," the way that M3GAN's different than just a robot that would function essentially is that she realizes the pain and grief of Katie, and she's trying to protect her. Now she's a broken instrument because she was poorly designed. That's one thing I don't like at all about this movie. Like, for example, Gemma forgets to put herself as admin role on M3GAN at a certain point.
And it's like, you should have probably done that first thing, right? This is a prototype robot.
There's times people in this script do not act human. Gemma is like pitching a replacement for parents, like going through her pitch that she's going to give her boss, and one of the members of her team brings up, "Let's not do that," and she shuts her down and says, "Who the fuck do you think you are?" Like, it's not even a straw man argument.
And that lady later seems to be into it again.
Yeah, exactly. So no one's really acting like a real
later
person.
She's like, "No, M3GAN's fine. What are you talking about? This is great."
And
it's like, weren't you the person who thought this was a bad idea?
Right. And it extends to the boss. Like, the boss is terrible, and you go, okay, so they're doing like a satire of like an Elon Musk or some, random, exec or something like that. Where he's like, he walks in and he says, "Is this incredible?" Which is a line spoken from someone who's like, "I don't know what I'm looking at. Did this just change everything?" "Oh yeah, it did. It must have, because like my spidey sense is tingling," which is a hilarious thing for an entrepreneur to say, because it means they have no cardinal direction as to what something is good or not. So it's like, so it does feel like it's wrapped up in this metaphor.
Right. That's all right. Yeah, I want to pause for just a moment and explain to people listening if they haven't seen the movie, because there's going to be people listening and being like, "What the fuck are they talking about?" it's a movie about a murderous doll. Why are we talking about the metaphors in it? And my answer is because the movie presents them.
They
invite us
to.
to.
They want us to.
And if they just wanted it to be a dumb movie about a murderous doll, make it R-rated and make the body count more than like 3 fucking people and go for it. Like, that's the thing. They don't go for that. If they were making a slasher horror, then do that, but they didn't. They were specifically trying to create this metaphor. You can see them setting it up in all these scenes. They're calling attention to it. And so if you're calling attention to it, this is the conversation you have to have.
This is the conversation. I don't care about the other conversation because it's not in the movie. It's in the trailer, but it's not really in the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, the finale is the weirdest thing to me because, like, so here's what happens. Like, essentially, there's a prototype that's introduced as a plant and payoff earlier in the movie.
That was the only thing they pay off, and it was the most.
And it's not even a payoff.
Plant and payoff.
Yeah, it's just like, here's the thing for no reason. They use it as a scene to get Katie and Gemma to be a little closer in a time of strife, which is basically the entire movie.
Yeah, but I guarantee
so it just comes up out of nowhere. It's weird.
Yeah, I also guarantee everybody watching this movie, I don't care if you're a 5-year-old kid, saw that prototype robot and thought, that's what's going to fight Megan at the end.
No one's
like,
guessing that. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no and like there's something to be said about, like, some movies don't have to be smarter than us. You know, like, it's probably writing it they knew that we would know. But
well, not really, because, like, here, I get that one over my head, because here's the thing is that if you're doing these scenes that are like, okay, so we got this grief racked, like, family, and we got this robot who is like overcharged for empathy. This is going a certain way. Where's it leading? You wouldn't go back and say, yes, the antagonist of the film, the prototype, the previous version of Megan that she's been, like, maybe if Megan was toiling over, like, what am I?
You didn't think it would end that way?
I just thought, I mean, yes, I did, because I knew who made it, and I knew that they're going to have a fight. And they need a fight, and they need an equal.
It just felt like it's like, here's this super strong robot I made. You can control it with these gloves.
But that's nonsense.
Anyway,
who cares?
Like,
that's like a baby thought. Like, to me, like, the thought that they're trying to put in your brain is that everything is on this. Everything is essentially on this crash, like, trajectory, for something to happen with, like, this powerful empathy. Like, that's just not brought up at all, and they went for this other thing, which is, like, I don't know what they're trying to say with, like, I mean, maybe they're not trying to say anything.
That's what it is.
I know, but it's like, why do all the other things to make me think that?
That's what it comes down to is, I don't know what they were trying to say. The idea of this robot being programmed around a little girl going through grief, and that grief turns the robot into a sociopath.
Right.
And it's like, okay, what are you saying about the way grief affects the people around them? What are you saying about parenting? Because at one point she's, Megan starts saying, I am the parent here. What are you saying about how electronics and the internet and screens affect our lives? What are you saying about the purpose of a toy? They present all those questions, and then they never really answer them.
They refuse
like
to
land on a
and
definitive
it makes me angry.
thing.
I want to ask you a question, Dave.
Okay.
Did you notice at all, or do you think it's intentional at all, that Megan, M3GAN, and Gemma are nearly anagrams?
Oh, no.
Instead of another M, it's an N. So, but I do think it was intentional. I thought someone said, like, what's an anagram? Oh, Gemma and Gemma and Megan are not anagrams.
They probably.
But very close. Oh, yeah, that's kind of deep, too. When you think about that, it's like the same but different. Like,
right.
That's the kind of... that's what I think that the mind of the people creating this, and I'm sorry if you're listening, people who made this, but, like, was that intentional at all? What is going on with these metaphors? There's at one point there's a small hole in a fence where Megan reaches and a dog bites her, and then the dog bites Katie, and it's like to me that's a simplistic metaphor that is just trying to say, like, oh yeah, there's always, like, a kink in the armor, there's always a way to get out. And this is the way in which, like, Megan's going to get found out. Like, the neighbor's going to find Megan, and they're going to have this whole other problem, which they do. Like, the cops start asking around and saying, like, people are dying, and it's all surrounding around this house. But they never actually go, like, by the way, do you have a robot? People have been talking about this weird robot that you have, and one of our deputies has seen it. So they even hint at this larger kind of arc that would be like, what if it gets out? You know, like, what if people now are like, what's going on with this robot that's in this community? They don't really touch that either. To me, it's like, what are you doing with these suggestions? That's the hole in the fence metaphor is a wonderful metaphor. It's a simplistic one. Like, you'd see the same thing done in like a Coen Brothers movie, or, you know, like in a Ratu or something like that, a Cuarón movie or something like that. I can think of several where they do like, all right, let's think of the simplest fucking thing we can think of. But here it's like you want the metaphor, but what I don't understand what the metaphor is saying, and that's one of the sadder parts, because I wanted to like the movie, you know?
Right.
I wanted to like that aspect of it.
You're talking about the writing, and I'm very, again, like, as someone who writes, it's like I'm always sympathetic towards the writer. This is the writer of *Malignant*. That said, James Wan and one other person also did the story by for *Malignant*, and then James Wan did the story by for this. James Wan, of course, being the producer. And I wonder, I've been trying to wrap my head around, like, they clearly saw what *Malignant* did, and they were like, we want that again, right? Like, we want another *Malignant*. We want another meme.
Yeah.
I have issues with *Malignant* because I think there's some really cool ideas in *Malignant*. I really do. But I do think like it for the most part, the movie rested so much on the meme of it. And I think this kind of does too, where it's like most of the movie, but to its credit, *Malignant* was at least rated R, and when it decided to go for it, it went for it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm so confused about this one and the PG-13-ness of it all, and like, I don't know, like what were they going for? Was the meme of it all in the original script?
Yeah.
Was the original script like, I'm going to actually write this story that's kind of like exploring these ideas, and then in the process, someone said, no, get rid of that stuff, and we're replacing it with this stuff.
Yeah. There's a lot of holes. Megan apparently, when she gets angry, affects the lights.
Right. And she like affects a car. They imply that she affects electronics around her.
She reprograms Elsie, which is like the Alexa of the house. Is like,
right, I was willing to accept that. And they do an ending where it implies that Megan is, of course, still in that AI.
Yeah.
But when she like makes a car start, I was like, well, how does that work?
Does she Wi-Fi into the Lambo and drives away? Megan knows at one point about corporate espionage.
Yes.
She's aware of the assistant and frames the assistant for the murder, because she's like, I know that you have already put plans in motion to steal from your boss, and I'm going to frame you.
Yeah, I don't want to rewrite this movie, but so they do this thing where the boss's assistant is being treated like crap, and they do a scene where he's very easily stealing the Megan designs. He just drags and drops, and it's
into a folder that says like Kurt's stuff. It's like, what the fuck?
It's pretty bad. Yeah. But then you think like, oh, okay. Like, so the wheels started turning for me there. As a writer, I was thinking like, okay, so the presentation is going to be a bloodbath, and Kurt, the assistant, is going to barely get out with his life. Megan will be taken down ultimately, and then we'll get like a scene at the end of Kurt interviewing at another company and being like, oh, I got something you'll want. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, okay, so it's all going to start over again. But none of that happens. And like, you could argue like, oh, isn't it good that the thing you expect doesn't happen? And it's like, kinda, but also, I'm just like going. I'm following the logical conclusion of what they're setting up. Instead, Megan kills the boss and then goes in the elevator and says to Kurt, like, I'm going to frame you for this murder because I know that you stole the stuff. And you're gonna you have killed your boss, and then you're gonna slit your own throat.
Everyone's gonna think that you did it. No one's gonna suspect me.
Yeah, and it's like, why even add that?
Why are we killing these people? Who cares?
Also, this is like right before the final confrontation, where it's like, even if they knew it was Megan, it's not like they would have. And then in the end, the cops do show up at the. So it's just like, I don't know why she needed to frame Kurt.
Yeah.
And it feels like what happened is that they wrote that in for a different purpose, and then there was heavy rewrites, and the writer had to find a reason.
I get that vibe too, and that's what kind of makes me frustrating about like the metaphors that don't land kind of stuff, is that. There also might be, you might be listening to this, and if you've seen Megan, you might be screaming at, your monitor or your phone right now, like, you guys don't get it. It's like, look at all the beats in the movie that are like clearly jokes. Like, there's at one point a detective laughing at like Brendan's ear being separated. Brendan's a boy who gets killed by Megan.
I enjoyed that detective.
Yeah, separated from his body, and then he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't laugh." At one point. Several people in the movie at this point have seen Megan and been like, "Oh, is that like a toy? What the fuck is that?" But then they finally have one counselor, like finally they bring Megan out to the wild, which is crazy. And a counselor goes like, "Jesus Christ," when she sees Megan, because Megan is a horrifying demon robot.
Right.
So like they are self-aware, and that's what. If this was just a mediocre movie, I could be fine with it, and I wouldn't even speak to it. I would just be like, it's a mediocre movie, and here's why.
Right.
The thing that kind of frustrates me about this, and it's a little bit scary for like the State of the Union of these types of movies, is that they're also doing stuff that is, I would say, good or self-aware, or in a movie that you would expect that would be kind of satirizing a lot more stuff. But then they don't do it. That's frustrating to me, because that's like, okay, so you do kind of know that this is all ridiculous and you want to poke fun at it, and that is fun, and you're getting kind of the cachet out of that. You're getting, kind of points for that, I guess. But like, What is it all leading to if it just turns out to be another pulp, like, final answer? That becomes frustrating, because it's like the writer or the filmmakers saying, like, look over here, look over here, look over here, now look over here, now look over here. And like, just moving my attention around does not mean that you've crafted a story that's worth telling. It's frustrating to me that it's working.
Yeah, the thing that always hits me is the idea of good enough. It's good enough to get a sequel. It's good enough for people to like it. Because it pushes it, like, it checks off the right boxes. But when you look at a script like this, the more I thought about it, the more it was like, just give me the script, which is a really like self-absorbed way to frame it. But it doesn't have to be me. It's just like, man, I can see the past that needs to be done on this. Mm-hmm. Like, I can see the decisions that need to be made. Make it R-rated. Just either take out those metaphors or actually do them. And it feels like there's just some note process that happened here.
They kept it away, yeah.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because I also think that the things that I'm thinking change-wise wouldn't hurt its success. I know making a movie PG-13 probably helped it at the box office.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah.
But like, there's a way to make this a better movie, is my point, and a better movie that would also be successful is, I think, what I'm.
I think it exists. Kind of going back to like, why did this movie succeed, or like what's good about this movie? I want to keep hitting the satire. There's another moment where like the executives are crying, because there's a scene where like M3GAN actually has a real moment with Katie and like helps her get through her grief, and it happens to be that in the showcase of like trying to show the investors that this is the new product, and there's like laughable executives going like, oh, boo, 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 boo. You know, like, it's amazing because you think of that scene and you think of what that scene's worth, and I think of something like Starship Troopers. You know, I think of like a Paul Verhoeven, like, look at how ridiculous this is. The fact that like this is the society we live in, where these caricatures we're trying to say these are people, these are real people in this world, and so it keeps pulling me back in. They are doing things that good movies will often do, or a certain type of movie. And I think you're right. Like, a Starship Troopers is a great example to me of a movie that is doing this type of stuff and also sticks the landing. This movie is just not good enough, and I don't think we should give it the praise, because it's aiming high. Well, it's aiming very high, and if it was just I'm just going to be another Annabelle, I'd be like, I don't know, I wouldn't talk about this.
Well, I would argue this is better than Annabelle, because Annabelle, I would say, is like Chucky, but without the fun. It's just like, ooh, spooky doll. Like, M3GAN sets everything up to be a slasher. It is supposed to be a slasher movie. That is the genre of horror, and it's weird that it's then PG-13, and they don't really deliver that side of it.
No, they don't.
I do want to give you a little hope about the reviews, because I said I had a theory about this.
Uh-huh.
So I've been referring to Rotten Tomatoes, and it has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics. And you look at that and you go, wait, what? You, of course, know how Rotten Tomatoes works, right?
Yeah.
Which is that it's a binary idea. It's a yes or no. Do the critics like it or not? So when you actually go through the critical reviews, the ratings are stuff like 4 out of 5, 2 out of 4, 2.5 out of 4. But that all amounts to good.
It won the election by like mediocrity.
Exactly.
I understand that. That's a lot of Rotten Tomatoes darlings, to be honest.
Oh yeah, well, but then when I was looking through the reviews, when you look through the reviews, it's not people saying this is amazing.
Yeah.
It's in fact people saying like, yeah, it aims for the fences. It doesn't quite get there. It's kind of fun. It's kind of stupid.
Right.
It tries to be smart. And it's basically saying what we're saying overall, which is like, yeah, it was fun. It wasn't, it could have done more. It wasn't as good as, and so like, that's all I'm saying is that the in this case, this is one of those Rotten Tomato situations where this is why Rotten Tomatoes isn't a very good indicator sometimes.
It's an aggregator, like, not a critic site. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, if you were reviewing this, yeah, 2 out of 4, 3.5 out of 5. I'd be like, sure, maybe a 3 out of 5.
Right.
I might go a little lower personally, but like it makes sense, right? And it's like, this is January. People expect everything to be crap. Right. People were kind of laughing at this movie more than with it when the trailers came out. So I think people were just like, critics were like, oh, this is better than I thought it would be. Mm-hmm. And they kind of accidentally praised it. And I think
it got overpraised. It was easy for everyone to like because there's a few fun scenes. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a fear of missing out as well, where critics don't want to feel like they're not in on the joke.
Yeah, maybe.
But ultimately, I do think that resulted in a movie that's getting way more praise
in the breadth of this podcast was like, you probably are saying these chuckle fucks don't get it. I am worried about that too. Like, it's an obvious, like, there is a lot of fun in this movie. There's an ad that's like, this could help with so many kids, not just the kids with dead parents. You know, it's like, it really does feel like that Starship Troopers kind of satire.
It really does, but as we keep saying, it's only good enough.
Well, then they mash it up.
Never does the things.
They don't do it in their, like, they do that scene and they cut directly to a scene that's a real scene about how unfair it is to Katie that she lost her parents. And it's like the absolute whiplash you get from this stuff of unearned nonsense. it could have been good. It could have been good.
Here's what I'll say also I think elevated it for people that we haven't mentioned is I do think M3GAN, the character, is well done. I think she is... I don't think this movie's scary, right? This is not a scary movie. I don't think it's trying to be. Mm-hmm. Which, again, can't stress enough, then make it gory. If it's not scary, make it gory and make it fun. But there's these moments where M3GAN, like, does a glance or, like, pretends to be shut off, where the audience, when she would do that, would laugh. Because because the audience thought it was funny. They was like, look how obviously creepy this doll is.
This is a demon. Yeah.
Yeah, it's obviously a murder doll, and that's kind of funny about it.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, all we need is an excuse to get there, and then we have the scenes, and it's fine, and everyone can rejoice. It does bother me on some story level that like they even fucked up the character a little bit with the AI going wrong, because they do a lot of this stuff to make this AI judgment thing occur, which is like, it's done in order to make M3GAN seem like she's on a crusade of righteousness, right? That makes her more fearful. That's something we do with our horror monsters. We give them like an impulse to, or a directive that they must complete, because then it just seems like, oh, well, we can't stop them. It's not like you can argue them out of it. So she's like, and at one point she says to somebody, she's like, if there's a heaven, little boys like Brendan wouldn't go there. And that's the problem. There's no problem with the AI there. The flaw is that it's not human enough. It's just that it's a demon. It's a demon who has been programmed to kill little boys.
Yeah, like, I want to talk about that, actually.
Because I wonder, like, when did we get to that point in AI movies? Well, it's because I think they don't care about the AI-ness. They like the robot look, and they want to make a demon little girl movie. And that, you know what? That can be fine, too, I guess.
Yeah. Here's the obvious metaphor they could have done, which is a little on the nose, but would have kind of helped it, is if M3GAN just accidentally downloaded the entire internet and became a sociopath. Like 4chan, etc., where it's that idea of where that AI robot that spent like a week on Twitter and became racist. Just do that. Just do that for M3GAN.
Just do that for M3GAN.
Because that's what this is a metaphor for. Again, is like putting YouTube in front of your kid is not a good way to raise the kid, because YouTube doesn't care about your kid. In the end, YouTube is a sociopath. The internet is a sociopath. It is an uncaring thing, and you don't want. Like, I'm saying that as a message. I don't really fully believe that about raising kids. I just want to make that clear. I was raised on the internet. I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Yeah. But that seems to be the direction they're heading. And there is something to say about, like, the internet radicalizing young men, which is a problem. So they could have played with this idea, but M3GAN, what is happening to M3GAN is just another good like microcosm for the entire problem with the movie, which is that it kind of just says, you get the idea. It's good enough. She downloads, she like says, what is death at one point. She goes, downloading what is death. And then at one point, like what I mean by like, how is M3GAN getting screwed up?
Yeah.
At one point, she's like shut off, and she's like, "Are you sure I'm in the middle of like the download or something?" Like it's implied that
she wants to learn about death.
Yeah, and there's implied that there's like certain directions she gets them, which is like, okay, your main purpose is to take care of what's her face emotionally, like protect her emotionally and physically, and so like never creating the parameters between like, we'll protect her how.
Yeah, they just general stuff. You just ask it. You just mention it to Alexa and she'll figure it out.
Right. And M3GAN later says, she says, "What are you?" And M3GAN's like, "I've been trying to figure that out myself." Later she says to the main character, like, "You barely gave me a directive or programming, and then I had to figure it out. What did you expect?" And so that, first of all, that's like, wow, so you're terrible at making AI, huh?
Yeah.
Terrible.
Yeah, terrible at it.
Like I think I talked about this in the trailer. How easy is it not to make a doll with superhuman strength that kills people?
Yeah, you could.
Like-
you literally already did it. Just put it in the one of those fursies things. You know,
Yeah.
just like what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, what are you doing? Why does she have super strength?
I love the setup of the movie. It's trial 1, Megan's head explodes and she sets on fire. Trial number 2, let's put it in a room with a child.
Right. And I think there's an element where like the critics are laughing at it with that, where they're like, yeah, it's funny,
Yeah,
it's
it's
campy.
funny. Yeah.
But 94%, I'm sorry, that's like Schindler's List.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, it just
there
feels
should be
wrong.
60%.
It feels wrong.
It's just
Exactly.
it's fun. Again, it's a fun movie. The audience was laughing at the movie, and I think the movie kind of knows it's supposed to be laughed at.
Right.
But that's, again, it's the Malignant thing where people are like, isn't that funny? And it's like, they're trying to be a meme, like, and I don't know, it feels weird to like deliver something that's like kind of half-assed, but like the meme works enough that people are like, we love it. But what I'm getting at with Megan's programming is like, they never really like do anything smart or sci-fi with like what
Right.
went wrong with Megan.
No, they hint at it, but they don't, again, follow through. But
And that's-
instead, we're given these scenes where it's like, it's scary because she run like horse girl.
Right.
And yeah, it's not pointing out the things that are surrounding it, like the DNA of the story. It's just like, overtly basic horror sequence, please.
Yeah, and I think that just like the metaphors in the movie, they're kind of just like, yeah, you get it. Like they never,
Yeah.
again,
Yeah,
there's not
that's right.
there's not an intelligent through line there. There's just a bunch of swarming ideas that's just like, yeah, you see, it's about like parenting and stuff, but it
Right.
never really says anything. And I think that's
Yeah.
in terms of like the messages and like what this movie has to say. That's generally it, right? It's a swarm of ideas. It's like a brainstorming session.
Right. And it's a go for broke. Who cares about the story? I don't care if it pays off or not. And like, that's not what I'm here for. I wanted to do it, so I did it. Let's make her dance. That's
Right.
the motivation behind all this stuff. It feels
Right.
like.
And but then I keep going back to it. If that's the motivation, then
Why
do
the other
that.
stuff. Yeah.
It doesn't do either.
I think-
tries to be an elevated horror movie, but it doesn't do that. And then it's like, but it's also fun. We're having fun. But it's not fun enough. And so it's like, I can't excuse that it's trying to say these messages. Like, it almost feels like it wants people to hand wave it. It's like, it's just a dumb movie. Why are you trying to analyze it? It's like, because they did that. And it also, the movie's not dumb enough then. Like,
Yeah.
have her tear someone's skull out of their face then. Have her do some really gnarly shit. Have fun with it. And that's going back to the Cheddar Goblin, where it's
Right.
like, if you're going to do it, do it.
It does. So now we're like split in two, or we've like presented the movie as having two masters, right?
Yeah.
And that's what scares me, is that I'm like, my secret theory is that the movie Scream from, whenever that was made in 99, 2000. 96, Jesus Christ, I'm old. The movie Scream ruined and created a renaissance in how we do horror now, and or at least how
For
the
sure.
audience expects horror movies to be. Because I'm presented with these two things where I'm like, okay, there's psychological terror and kind of self-awareness and satire. There's also, fuck it, let's just do a basic horror sequence with whatever things we have around us at the time. You have these two kind of not polar opposites, but like two different motivations for why you're creating a horror movie. And I think the self-aware, I am now sitting after watching M3GAN, it's kind of broken my brain a little because I'm like, what do I want? What do I want out of it? I kind of
I have
don't
an
think I
answer.
need the meta anymore. And they're all fucking meta now with that shit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's taste, but I think what we're also circling is a very common problem, which is that when you try to be everything, you end up not being anything.
Yeah, that's, I think, that's what I'm alluding to, I think.
It's like, ooh, M3GAN's funny sometimes, but also this scene's scary. And I'm like, no, sorry, she's not scary. Like
Right.
that TikTok dance scene, that could have been a scary idea, but it's not. You know,
Right, it's not.
They try to make it scary when she like attacks the woman in the garage, but it's like, I know it's Megan, you know, and I know she was going to kill this woman at some point. I don't know, man. There's nothing. You're not presenting any scary ideas. It's just a killer robot. It's Chucky, you know.
Yeah, and that's fine.
And so,
it can live
and then
and
it's
be
like,
that.
okay, so it's a slasher, but it's not. It can't be too gory. We need to be PG-13. It's a satire, but also it's like, it's got to be emotional, but not that emotional. Like the part where they say that the little girl is going to get attached to Megan. She throws a fucking fit when they take Megan away.
Yeah,
and then she
it
just
feels
sort of
kind of unwarranted, a little
Yeah,
bit. I mean, I guess I don't have children, but she loses it.
But that's what they're setting up. And then she just like has a heart to heart with her, and she's fine.
And she's fine. Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, do it or don't. But you tried to do both. And then later, Megan's like, help me paralyze your aunt. And for a second, the aunt thinks the little girl's gonna help, and I'm like, why would you think that? So like, they didn't set it up enough for that to be a threat. And she's like, no, don't do it. And then she's like, you forgot about our other member of the family, and it's the robot. And it's like, yeah, no shit, she's gonna do that. Like, so it's trying to do all the things.
It's trying to have everything. Yeah, it's
yeah. And so, personally, if I what I wanted from this movie, and I don't speak from everybody, I think drop all the metaphors and go with a slasher.
Yeah,
Megan is a terrific slasher villain. She's funny to watch. She's dancing. It's fun. And so just take that and add so much more gore.
just starts killing indiscriminately.
Yep.
Let's fucking go.
Yep.
That's a better
You're making
movie.
a sequel.
Yeah.
Put a hard R on that, baby.
Copy
and have
the hard drive and put it out to sea, and someone will find it like fucking Jumanji. I don't give a shit about my sequels if that's the type of movie I'm doing. But you're coming at me with like it's kind of like Ex Machina. I'm like, you ain't even in the fucking same weight class, motherfucker.
Right, you're trying to make a robot. What is like life and a cool dance sequence? It's like
intelligent?
Taken.
Yeah, I've been creeped out successfully by other AI films. But that's
So
the thing. That's what they don't care. That's why the PG-13 was decided. It's
good enough.
Fucking
They made their
4-quadrant risk adverse bullshit.
Right, which really bums me out when it's a horror movie, because horror movies are a specific genre.
A bastion these days. It still feels that way. It definitely wasn't the 2010s.
Yeah, it's what really bugged me, and I know this is a different podcast entirely, about Werewolf by Night, the Marvel horror, where I was like, if you're gonna do it, do it. But they made like a 4-quadrant, like, oh, it's like an old classic horror, but it's not actually like that. And then he's like kind of the hero, and then he has a superhero sequence, and it's like, so not a horror. You didn't actually make a horror. Make a horror. And I'm kind of sick of horror movies not like again, if you're going to make The Menu, which is great, make The Menu. Make a comedy, a dark comedy. That's what The Menu is. If you're going to make a horror and try to scare me. But this is like, oh, we're just kind of, it's silly and it's fun and it's for everyone apparently. And we're not going to do like, okay, if you're fun, be gory then. If you're not going to be gory, be scary. If you're not going to be scary, actually have a message, but it's just none of that, and it does like kind of short circuit me.
Did you see the Twitter? I'm just jumping on to different topics now.
Sure.
Did you see the tweet that was like the creator of M3GAN on like writing the title for the third film? Oh fuck! Like
Oh, that's great.
Just the idea, like it's definitely a memeable movie. It's like you know how they have that? What's the term for it when you're on the internet and like they're just like baiting you with a bait? Not click. I mean, it is the same kind of concept, but it's like to make you mad, to make you go like, this isn't a real opinion someone has. It's kind of like
rage baiting,
or whatever. It feels like a rage bait movie, not rage bait.
That's what bummed me out from the trailer, because Malignant got that
right,
and I would, again, I'm not a big fan of Malignant, but I would argue Malignant earned it, because they weren't like, you won't believe the memes of this movie. They pitched it like a horror movie, and then you have to watch it, and then word of mouth was like, oh, trust me, it's not what it seems. Go see it. This was like, it front-loaded it. Like the writer said specifically, they were bummed that they showed the TikTok dance in the trailer, because that was supposed to be kind of not a reveal, but like a surprise moment. But clearly they were like, no, we got to push the memes. And to some extent, they did successfully do that. I did see M3GAN referred to as like a gay icon because it's two mommies at the end. And I've heard people say like they even made her wig look cheap so drag queens can do M3GAN.
Do M3GAN, yeah.
And that's funny to me is that like they're right, but again,
that's right. Who's dressing M3GAN?
It's the director of fucking I think Homebound is that movie called. It's a director I like. Gerard Johnstone, who directed Housebound is what it's called.
Yeah, Housebound's pretty good. I don't know what's happening over there.
No, I think this was a studio. I really do think because it's the writer Malignant, and so what that triggers in my mind is that they were trying to make a Malignant happen again. And they wanted to force it this time. And I do think there were studio notes that kind of degraded this film from what it might have been. I think it definitely got turned into... down the line, it definitely got turned into a PG-13. Because James Wan, he directed Malignant, and so he probably had enough pull to say, no, we're keeping it R. They probably had less pull here. And I think they downgraded to PG-13. I think there were rewrites that fucked up the arc. Mm-hmm. And I think they were like, let's push the beam. And it worked.
And it will work. And it works. That's what I'm terrified of.
What I
because
beg,
then it's
Jason
like,
Blum, if you're listening to this.
Yes.
First of all, read my script. But also, Jason Blum, if you're listening to this, make M3GAN 2 R-rated. And now that you've gotten that hook
Slasher
for everybody,
movie.
Go for it. Like, I want to see M3GAN 2 like take place on like a boat with millionaires, and they're auctioning off like a
robots.
repaired, refurbished version of M3GAN as like rich weirdos, or like thinking of like maybe they're gonna weaponize her, and then she just goes nuts and make it a slasher where she just kills everybody.
Really, Brandon Cronenberg it up.
Yeah, something. Make it so that it's like the random nobody's on the ship, like working in like the wait staff or something is the hero, and like all the rich people get killed because everybody loves seeing rich people die.
You just
and just have fun with it? I don't know.
So you're telling him to make Under Siege with robots?
Yeah. No, I'm just saying make M3GAN 2 an R-rated slasher, and don't try to fucking elevate it. Just have fun with it.
That's right.
Basically, they can do what they should have done with this one. They can make M3GAN 2. They can make people walking out of M3GAN 2 and going, oh, okay, that's what M3GAN needs to be.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Kind of the same way you look at Friday the 13th and you're like, well, I mean, this is a little different, but it's like the first movie's good, but it doesn't define that series in the least, right? They can calibrate this, and they can make M3GAN a iconic slasher villain. I just don't think they did it in this one.
And I think what they're hinting at, because they do a post or like they do a final like epilogue scene where we kind of focus ominously toward the Alexa equivalent.
Right.
And you know that she was fucking with that shit earlier because Alexa started like using words that she wouldn't use, and like so you could tell that the robot was like on low key like fucking with the programming of this device. So does that mean that the sequel is actually gonna be like Alexa versus like a home invasion kind of deal? Like is that gonna be like you're invaded by the robots in the home?
I'm guessing they'll either drop that completely from the sequel, or they'll do a thing where I do think someone will put M3GAN back together, and then the AI in that Alexa will get back into the robot.
Right,
that's the easiest way to do it.
We need to, because the sizzle is the fact that it's a little doll walking around. Yeah, you can't have like But it's just weird that they went that way. But I guess it
Yeah.
all makes sense because it's just like, yeah, she Wi-Fi connects to everything because that's what M3GAN does.
Right. I would argue, to its credit, M3GAN takes a bunch of things from other films and mixes it together to make a superior slasher film than like Chucky. I think it took the Chucky element, obviously, and then it took like creepy little girl, and then it took like Terminator, because Terminator's a factor here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, by the way, to complement this film, there is one thing I did like, which is how incredibly hard it is for them to kill M3GAN at the end.
Yeah.
Where they literally have to like rip her face off, disassemble her
And
while
drill
she's
into
like
her head.
strangling them,
Yeah.
and like find her brain and bust it. And I liked that it went Terminator, where it's
Yeah.
like, this thing's hard to kill. It shouldn't be. You
Right.
shouldn't have made a doll like this, but it is.
This is not-
like. It's very visceral.
I love what if we dress up Terminator as like American dolls?
Yeah,
You know, like that's the pitch, right?
right. And it's
that's-
silly, but that's the point. You
That's
know?
the point, right? And so, yeah, I think you're right. Let's get a slasher going that's really and then we'll take you more seriously.
right, because
but whatever this is more of an indictment on the way we make movies and less on the career trajectories or quality of work that the people who worked on this movie are capable of.
well,
I
that's the
think.
thing. Yeah, my feeling on this movie is the more I think about it, the more I'm frustrated by it, because I did enjoy it. I saw it in the theater. I walked out. And I saw it with Hannah, and I was like, that was fun. I had fun, you know? And I didn't have much to say about it. And if I didn't have to podcast about it, I would have just been like, yeah, M3GAN's fun.
Forget
you
it.
know,
Yeah,
it's not my
that's
favorite.
right.
It's fun.
That's
But
true.
the more I think about it, the more I'm like, there's a lot of good stuff here that they just didn't follow through on. And it's frustrating that that's the case, where I see a lot of potential in M3GAN. And of course, if most people, it made a lot of money. Obviously, it succeeded. But so who am I to say that about it? But I just see a movie that could have been here, you know, that it didn't follow through on. We could have been like, I don't think in 6 months we're going to be thinking about M3GAN. I think if M3GAN had done its full potential, we would be. That's
would be.
what it comes
Yeah.
back
I
down
think
to.
I think you're right about that. I think it could have been just a genre film that was spectacular.
Yeah, the people
but,
would be like, holy shit,
woulda,
M3GAN
coulda,
was
shoulda.
amazing.
you know,
Yeah.
any one of these things could be classics if they are classic. But it's frustrating. Once again, I mean, I know we're wrapping up, but like there's a sequence, and like I'm a director by trade, and so I always want to look at like how they kind of piece together sequences. And like we learn that Gemma is the sister of the mother of in the first scene of the movie. Like this is the second scene in the movie, what I'm describing,
Right.
because of a phone call. So the mother and father of Katie die in this crash, right? And then we get a phone call, a shot of a city, and then we get a shot of Katie in a hospital bed, kind of bloody and being examined. And then we cut to the house of Gemma, and Katie is cleaned up and walking, and it's fine. But now she's walking into her house. That's actually very efficient. I love it. It's like
Yeah.
it shows that the filmmakers are not going to waste your time in trying to set up scenes where it's like, now we have to get Katie to be like this, like essentially is now orphaned, so she has to be kind of adopted by Gemma, and we have to work out that scene, and there's a scene where they talk and stuff like that. No, just cut to, you know, the process of things. You know how this might go. Oh, she's at the front door. Well, I guess
Right.
all that other stuff happened. And
the
it's
movie-
like, oh, you're actually good at like jumping ahead. If like you're treating me as intelligent, which is
right.
good.
And the movie also knows, like we joked about M3GAN's prototype exploding, which I thought she was going to explode again at the end. That seemed like a good setup. But to all the way to like now she's functional. The movie knows like we don't need to spend 40 minutes with them working on M3GAN. We just need M3GAN in 25 minutes, right?
Right.
Like, and so if it's a little silly, like in a little rushed, so be it, because the point isn't to tell a realistic story of how this doll is created, right?
Right.
Or why.
Yeah.
It's a silly idea from the start. and we know it, and we're not going to. Like the movie is very efficient in setting everything up, I would say.
And it's just weird that they chose in other times not to treat us like we. I don't know. It's
right.
It's
Again,
too mixed up because I can think of examples in both
everything.
ways. But ultimately, I think we're just a broken record here. You know. See if you can. If you like this movie, you know, I assume that some of the stuff that we're talking about that bothers us doesn't bother you. I want to know how your brain works. I want your brain. Give me your brain.
Well, no, again, I can't stress this enough. I do like by definition, I like this movie. I'll probably watch it again. But the writer in me can't help but to look at it and go, it's a wasted potential here.
Well, it's just
and so I'm hoping they could make it up in the sequel. Because I do think the stuff that I would cut is like the attempt at making it mean anything. I think you can get rid of that and just have more fun with it. Right. I think it leans closer to being fun, like that side, than the side of elevated horror where it's trying to make you cry or give you a message, you know? And so like, overall, I enjoyed it for what it was. I just think, I don't know. I think this could have been like a classic.
Do you know? Do you know what John Carpenter said when he was introduced to the term elevated horror?
Oh, I think I do, but yeah, say it.
He was just like, "What's that?"
Yeah, because why? What the fuck? It's true. Is that all horror should be elevated? I think Jason Blum actually said the way he picks horror movies, which is funny considering the movie we're talking about, but it's a good way to pick them. Is he said, I take out all the scares in my mind and ask, is it still a movie? Like, does it still have a character arc? Does it still have you know? And it's like, that is true. It's like, that's a good way to look at horror movies. Is like, they all should be elevated, right?
It is and it isn't, because then what you do have is you have created a fictional movie that doesn't exist. You've created two movies now, one that doesn't exist and one that you're going to make. I don't know how that's helpful.
It's hard because I do think about that too, which is like, if you took the script for like Big Trouble in Little China, I bet it wouldn't look like much. And then you watch it and you're like, oh, fuck. Because a lot of it's like, yeah, you have to be there. You got to see what we're going to do.
Right.
It's hard sometimes, like, and M3GAN, I think, is one where it's like, I kind of like this kind of script. It would been like, my rewrite of this script would be, I would remove all the stuff that tried to give it meaning and replace that with very descriptive scenes of M3GAN murdering people.
Yeah.
And be like, no, this is what you want.
So like Dead Alive, right?
Yeah.
Like that has very little plot, but the movie is not just like, one person could, I think, kind of be reductive and say it's just because it's all there with the gore. But if you watch that movie, all the gore scenes are like Simpsons bits, like they're like elaborate bits of like, oh, so this particular, they're doing like, a Three Stooges thing or something like that, and like they play it out. Like, you could script that shit and say this is why it's going to be fun.
Yeah,
they should do that with M3GAN and say like she kills him in this fashion.
Yeah, I want to I want to describe the murders in this film. I know we said we were wrapping up, but real quick is that the dog, she kills a dog. FYI, they don't show that. She kills a little kid by chasing him into traffic. She rips off his ear, which is okay. That's a good starting point, The one where it's supposed to be like, and here we go. It's the owner of the dog, and she's in the shed, and M3GAN approaches her. And I was like, oh, here we fucking go. Mm-hmm. She sprays her with I believe it's supposed to be a power washer, right?
Yeah.
Now, in an R-rated movie, she would strip off her face.
Yeah.
But this is a PG-13 movie. So it just looks like she sprays her with a hose.
Yeah.
And the woman just goes, ah! And then they cut to like a Psycho shot, basically, of the water, and it's bloody. And that's it. And it's like, you gave me a fucking power washer, and that's what you do with it?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Come
Have
on.
you seen what a power washer can do?
Come on.
Yeah, and then, but this is the biggest thing, is like, anybody could kill someone that way.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What makes Megan unique?
Yeah.
She later stabs a guy after doing a
Stabs a
dance,
guy
and it was
with-
like, again, like,
Just
yeah,
stabs him
anybody
with
can do
it.
that, and the stab is so PG-13 that there's no blood.
It's behind. Yeah, she stabs from behind, so it's the typical shot that we see, like the Game of Thrones murder. You know, like it's
Right.
gets stabbed right behind, like from behind, and we can't see who did the stabbing until the person falls.
Right.
It's like
And it's
the
like,
most
okay.
PG shit ever.
The biggest surprise to me is if someone came out and said they never wanted it to be gory, because that would blow my mind. Because you're making a slasher movie about a little girl doll. It's like what you want to see there is her punch through people. You want to see her rip a person in half.
Yeah.
You want to see her crawl through ducts and like squirm around, or like her body contort in weird ways. You want to see her do things that only a robot can do to kill people at that point. It doesn't even have to be high budget, like just ripping through somebody, crushing their head. And they don't do any of that. All the murders are things that any human could accomplish. That's fucking wild to me.
It's number one problem with the movie. I mean, we identified that the movie never doesn't go through with it. This
Right.
is the product of that. This is why if it did succeed in these ways, I think that we would be less harsh on it, because
Yeah,
we'd be
and-
like, at least there's this, you know?
Yeah, and to anybody who says I liked it too. What we're imagining is a movie where you love it. Because I don't think anybody listening to this loved this movie.
No one loves
I don't think
M3GAN.
anybody's like, I'm fucking obsessed with this movie.
And if you do love M3GAN, can you DM me? Can you?
Yeah,
Like, I want to
because
talk to you.
Yeah, because imagine what we're describing here and how much better that would be as a horror movie or as a slasher movie, which is, I can't stress this enough, the genre of this movie.
Right. Right.
It's right now, by the way, the genre listed, horror, mystery, thriller, sci-fi, comedy, which if that doesn't describe the problem, I don't know what does.
I don't know what does. Very, very true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know what keeps something a B movie, like a beloved B movie. I don't know what makes it.
Making
But
it memorable, make it stick.
I think it all has to come down to is just scrappy. That's what makes it a B movie, but memorable. That's what makes it a good movie. I don't know what is memorable about this. I mean, I know the TikTok dance is going to be memified. That's it. And that's all a movie needs is one, right? So
apparently
that's what scares me the most when I come out of this. Like, okay, so think whatever you want to think about this movie. Going forward, what's the lesson that we're teaching people who make movies? That this kind of behavior should be encouraged. I'm scared of that. Like an old man clutching to his old ways, I'm scared. Because I really do think that it will become a like, all right, what's your TikTok moment? You know, like that will be a way in which we make movies. What's TikTokable? What's a thing that I could play on a GIF that can replay? Show me that. Okay, that you got a movie, kid. And it's like now you're just using a different barometer for success. You're using shareability as your barometer for success, not quality.
You're using that
terrifies me.
You're using the fact that home video sales don't exist anymore, and so you just have to get those
make
fucking butts in the seats
happen.
in the first weekend, and that's that.
I mean, that is the way I put it is more of like a hopeful, like, let's change the thing, but your statement is much more of an indictment on like the reality that we live in, and that's also fair and true.
Yeah.
But here we are. Just wanting to like a horror movie about a little girl who's a robot.
Yeah, I mean, I do think last year was a good year for horror comedy. I don't think it was a great year for horror, but there's tons of that still coming out. I mean, fucking before this movie was a trailer for Infinity Pool, and let me tell you, that's not a movie designed to be memed.
Yeah,
that's not a getting butts in the seat.
And that's gonna fail. And it's probably gonna.
And you know
it
what?
might be awesome.
Let's change that. I want to see some gifs of Infinity
hit us
Pool.
up. Hit up some Infinity Pool. Let's get a meme going. Let's get.
Yeah.
That's all. That's what the Cronenbergs need, because they do have those moments in the movie. Actually,
They really do.
But it's like, yeah, why can't we like that? I don't know. There's something ineffable about like Megan dressed up like the fucking Victorian orphan that she is.
Yeah.
And like just doing that dance. There's something that I can't. If I knew it when I saw it, I would be making millions of dollars. You know.
Well, what it is? Okay. In my head, there's always two types of horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
There's a horror movie that's like we're actually set out to upset you. That's the point of this movie.
Right.
You're not you want to be scared? Yeah, we're gonna make you scared. We're gonna scare you. We want to upset you. Then there's the other side, which is teenagers on a date, and there's nothing wrong with either.
Mm-hmm.
Slasher movies tend to be in between those two. Like, obviously, it's this whole spectrum. But you look at, like, the PG-13 horror movies that come out, they're meant to say, okay, teenagers on a date, or teenagers in general, want to go see a movie. They want to see a horror movie. They want jump scares. There's a fucking jump scare in this. I think it's the dog bark at the beginning. That was super cheap. For the most part, this didn't have too many jump scares, which was nice. But they're just like, we're going for... It's basically a B movie, which is like, yeah, we're just going for something for teens to watch. We're not trying to truly horrify you. We're not trying to make you fucking, like, not sleep. We're not going to try to stick with you. It's just like, look at that creepy old lady, you know? It's that side. It's like, it's a ghoul of some sort. And slasher tends to do that, where it's like, yeah, it's a guy in a mask, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Slashers have the advantage of their kills being especially creative, which is why I think we love slashers, which is that slashers are simple on the brain, but fun as hell.
You can make a game out of anything. You know, that's so if you want to make comedy or you just want to make it interesting, look at like martial arts movies. That's the same kind of thing. Like, and cut to the gore, or like with martial arts movie, cut to the kicking. You can't tell me that there aren't artful, just well done, like Legend of Drunken Master kind of martial arts movies where it's like every fucking thing is a game, and it's like, oh, this is amazing. You can do that. Friday the 13th and others have done it.
Right. And I here's the thing is, I think what it used to be, and I have nothing to back this up, is that back in the day when they thought of teen date movies, they thought of Nightmare on Elm Street. They thought of Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. Right? They thought Scream. I saw Scream as a teenager, right? You have someone older go in, or they didn't card as much, etc., etc. And those were what M3GAN is filling, right? It just seems like more likely, or more lately, they've been taking those films and making them less gory and more, because those films always became, some of them are forgettable, some of them aren't. But what made them always kind of stick around was the fucked upness of them, right?
Right.
The cult classics were ones where it's like, fucking Prom Night 2, where you're like, what the fuck am I even seeing? It's filled with sex and violence. And it just feels like there's now this like era of like safer horror, I guess, that end up kind of becoming very forgettable, because they want to be for teenagers, and they want to be like, oh yeah, we want to make sure they can see it, so it's PG-13. That's the vibe I get, and I think M3GAN just leaned too far into that, where it's like, there's millions of those, and they all disappear after a year. Winchester. Does anybody remember fucking Winchester? Like this version of horror movies where they're like, make it for under 10 mil, make it like PG-13, you make a bunch of money in the box office and you're out. And then no one remembers them again. And M3GAN just was like, it didn't have to be that. And maybe it isn't, but it sort of is.
Not this way.
Yeah.
Not like this. I have nothing to add to that point because you nailed it. I have posits as to why it's true. Like the PG-13ification of everything has, to me, it's still like what's the cause? I mean, the root cause is to make more money. I'm not talking about that, but it's like, what is also the motivating factor for like cleaning up horror? Is that a statement on like our society trying to be more like responsible with what we show the youth? Probably not.
I don't think so.
But you can make the argument. Then there's the other thing, which is that it's just it's becoming a more commonplace genre. It's more popular, and therefore the kind of PG-13ification occurs, kind of like it did with adventure movies.
Right. And you could make, like, I would argue, I don't remember if Nope is PG-13, but that could have been an easy PG-13 while still being a good movie. Because if you're making elevated horror, that's different, right? When you have something to say, when you're actually... But, like, when you're making, like, we're just trying to get teens to go see movies, right? It's like a little cynical, but it's kind of... one of the best things about horror, right? Again, no one made the third Friday, the third Nightmare on Elm Street, thinking this is going to be an elevated horror. This is going to mean something.
No.
And I think what it really comes down to is, I think home video sales was a huge part of horror.
It really
I
was.
think more than any other genre, where it's like, okay, put some boobs in it, right? Put some gore in it.
Right.
There's obviously plot problematic elements from the era I am describing. I know this, but the idea was like, make it bloody, make someone fucking have their tendons ripped out and their fucking Freddy Krueger is using them like a marionette. Have Jason Voorhees like chop these people up. Have people have lots of sex. Will teens see it in theaters? Maybe not. Maybe they won't be able to, right? And so it becomes this like, ooh, I got to see that movie, but I'm not over 18. And maybe you don't do great in theaters, but guess what happens after that? It goes on rental, and guess what's going on? Everybody's fucking getting their grubby little hands on it.
Right.
People who are underage. And it probably, I'm guessing that is how it worked, right? Is like, forbidden horror movie, too shocking for youngsters, and then everybody rents it, everybody gets it, everybody
gets it.
watches it.
Yes. That's exactly how it operates.
And now they're like, we need to get them there in the theater. And so the safest way to do that is we can't make it gory. We can't do all the
things. We have to make a PG-13 so that families will come.
Yeah, and we can't make it over the top in specific ways. And
because the loners, the people who did home movies, who were like, I just want to watch a movie to myself, kind of the power users of movies in a way, have just gone to streaming. So it's almost like this monolithic situation that we put ourselves into is now, has been for a decade, but like really we're starting to feel it now with the movies that are being made. There's only a few types of movies that truly can be like a success in that way. Like a Top Gun Maverick or something like that. Like it's designed to be that blockbuster thing anyway.
It's supposed to be safe. Some films are supposed to be safe.
Yeah. Whereas
M3GAN
this is not supposed to be safe. So how do you build it, much less how do you market it? Well, the marketing and the building now becomes set between two kind of masters, right? Where you have this marketing that is like, well, any form of life that we can show that isn't rated R, that is what we're going to be pitching at everyone, screaming it atop a mountain. And the builders of the movie are like, yeah, but that's not the reason we built it. And I don't know why we built it, to be honest, is the vibe I'm getting with some of this other stuff, where it's just like they are trying 80 different things, throwing everything that they can at it because they can't do the one thing they want to do.
Right.
And that's I guess a review of M3GAN, which kind of becomes sad when you think of it, because it's not anyone's fault except our own.
I keep going back to I enjoyed watching it at the time.
Right.
And I think a lot of our frustration has to do with like what this symbolizes to me, which is a movie that we've, to sum up, tried to rely on being a meme, had to be safe for theaters, and in another era would have been a gory B movie. It would have been a slasher that went all out. And so you look at this and you're like, this could have been the next big Jason Voorhees, but it just doesn't do it. And I think what it makes me sad for is like what could happen. The other movies that are like this, that can come after it. That's gonna try to be this safe. It's just weird to see a horror movie be like bumper bowling. It's weird to see a horror movie pull back when it obviously shouldn't have.
Yes, it obviously shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But again, you're listening to two people who are writers, and we take the most joy in the world by the construction of these things. So our gripes and our kind of analysis is coming from a place that isn't necessarily your maximum enjoyment of a movie. It's ours. So that's always something that has to be said. Kind of, I don't want anything that we've said to really be like, this is a definitive, like, yes, M3GAN is not good for these reasons.
I think if you've listened to this podcast before, to We Just Watch, we're not experts. This is opinions.
It's all opinion, baby.
Plenty of people, I'm sure, has disagreed with us. Whatever.
And I really do. This is like excellent. To me, this has been an excellent conversation, only in that anytime
we're very smart.
We're very smart. Anytime though there's a movie is indicative of like the repercussions of other movies, then we're starting to talk about trends, and that's where it gets good to me. I think I want to keep this trend conversation going because I don't have the answer, but like I think we do have the power to make better movies and ask by voting with our purchase power, but also just by talking. The internet is a powerful tool. It can move people. So, like, let's get a thing going where we talk about how M3GAN could have been better. Let's make a fan version of M3GAN, maybe. I don't know. Fuck it.
A what? A fan version? Let's meme the fact that M3GAN should have been more gory.
Yeah.
Honestly, make
just add
so someone
blood
take
to M3GAN.
someone take the murder sequences in this and make it gorier. Like, I don't know, Photoshop it. Do your magic.
Just spice it up a bit, baby.
Spice it up.
That's what we want. Please make it for us. We're not going to do it.
We don't have to keep talking about M3GAN now, do we?
No, we can talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Oh, cool. So what? I guess we can just end the podcast.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you so much, everybody. Abe, you want to plug some stuff again?
Yeah. So I mentioned patreon.com/smallbeans. That's the name of the thing that I'm a part of. We're also making a movie. That's crazy, right? That's pretty crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
This year we're like, I'm going to make a movie, and me and Mike are making sure that we're doing that. So right now, trying to get funding and all that stuff we're going to do in a month or two here. We're going to do a Kickstarter, so look out for that. But also, if you go and do the Small Beans thing right now, you can go back and listen. We're transparently making it in front of everyone, so we have I guess they're movie diaries that essentially go into the making of a movie if you're interested in that kind of stuff. So we do that. We're making a movie. It's called Papa Bear. Keep it on your radars is all I have to say right now.
Yeah. Do it.
Do it.
I'll plug the Patreon. That you're listening to this on Gamefully Unemployed. We have a Patreon, patreon.com/gamefully, GAMEFULLY, unemployed, for just $5 of your human dollars a month. You get access to a bunch of exclusive podcasts, such as Tom and Jeff Watch Batman and Fox Mulder is a Maniac. We do podcasts with the Small Beans, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. We have a t-shirt merch store. If you go to gamefullyunemployed.com, you get access to that. We also watch movies every Friday night with our patrons and have a bunch of other tiers on there that you can look at. And we're on Twitter, gamefullyun. That's probably the easiest way for now to get updates about what we're doing and what what our deal is.
Yeah. What's your deal?
Yeah.
I'll check that out.
That's our deal.
Looking it up right now.
Oh, yeah. www.twitter, TWITTER.com.
.com.
I want to say /.
I can't tell what it is, but keep going.
Yeah. Okay.
Gamefully.
Gamefully.
Underscore.
No underscore.
No underscore. Just
no
gamefully
fucking no.